So thank you all for coming today. I really would like to thank Damien for his valuable time. He has come here and travelled to the Brisbane campus to do this, and I'd like to say a warm welcome to Damien and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Alrighty, shall we make a start? So, as far as I know, we've got Rockhampton, have we got Gladstone now?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent, and we've also got Mackay. Good. Alright, so guys, we're going to make a start. We're going to be breaking today's little workshop down into a couple of different areas. So, I'm just going to pop up the way that I'm going to be running through. So, to do something like RoboCupJunior Soccer, you can't just dive straight in and do everything all at once. What we're going to do is we're actually going to break the big problem down into lots of little problems. This is actually a really nice way of focusing back on the Australian curriculum as well, because the Australian curriculum talks about things like problem decomposition as part of our computational thinking skills. So let's take this idea of soccer and let's break it down into a couple of different steps. So the first thing we need to do is find the ball. That's going to be one of the little tasks that we do. After we have found the ball, the next thing we're going to work on then is can we turn towards the ball. So once we find the ball and we can turn towards the ball, we're then going to add on the next stage. The next stage is can we just chase the ball down. So once we've got those three things in there, pretty much we can have a robot that just kind of follows the ball around. Whenever it sees the ball, it's going to charge it. At a very fundamental level, this is about all you need for soccer, for a very, very basic. Now, you're going to score just as many own goals as you are going to score your own goals. But this at least gets a game going. It's always fun for the kids to get this part up and running, and they can watch the robots chase the ball around. You stick a couple of robots down in the ball, and you're good to go. So we're going to dive into how we actually do this in the software. So let's jump across into our EV3 programming language. If you've got your blocks installed, what you should be able to see is in the yellow blocks, these last two here, High Technic Compass and High Technic IR Seeker. Now, if you've got IR Seeker V2 or just IR Seeker, that's fine for today. I'm just going to zoom my screen in a bit so we can have a better look.
So, Damien, is there any differences between the version 1 and version 2 of the software?
So, the version 2 of the hardware can detect distance as well as angle. So it's a slightly more advanced sensor, but not essential. If you've got one of the version 1s, my one's a version 1 that I'm using today, and that's what I'll be concentrating on. But if you do have the version 2, you can then start looking at how far away the ball is, not just which direction it is. Alrighty, so to get started, we need our robot to be able to figure out where the ball is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, rather than just start getting our robot driving around, we're just going to kind of figure out what kind of information this sensor gives us. So I'm going to start by just displaying this information on the screen. So I'm going to grab one of these High Technic IR Seeker blocks, a yellow block. And what that allows me to do is to find out the information that this sensor can give me. I'm going to take that information and I'm going to display it. I'm going to use a green display block. Hopefully you've all seen that green display block before. To send the information from this one block through to this next block, I just need to sort out a few different bits and pieces. Firstly, I'm going to display some text, and in this case I'm going to display it in a grid format. If I leave the block just like this, it's just going to display the word Mindstorms, and I don't want to see the word Mindstorms. I want to see the information that this sensor is giving me. So I'm going to change it from Mindstorms. Click on that, and I'm going to choose this option here that says Wired. And what Wired does, it allows me to send information. It's opened up a new little plug here. And if you look very carefully, what I'm going to do with my mouse, I'm just going to come across to my High Technic sensor, and with my mouse I'm just going to go click, and drag, 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 and release. And what this does is it takes a reading from my High Technic IR Seeker and sends it out to the screen of the robot, and it will display it on the screen of the robot. So just having a look at my setup here, I've got myself a High Technic IR Seeker. Mine's actually plugged into port number 4, and I've got myself a little soccer ball. I'm just using a little wheel here so it doesn't run away from me. With these IR soccer balls, if you've got an old one or some of the new ones, there is a little switch just inside here to turn it on. And so to turn it on, I'm just going to use a set of pliers there, and I get a little red light that comes on. Alright, that is now emitting infrared light. I'm going to use that information. I'm going to use that infrared light for my IR seeker to detect. So I'm going to go back to my software. At the moment, this is set up so that it's only going to take one reading. We start our program, we take a reading, we send it out to our display, and then our program finishes. What I'd ideally like to do is to be able to loop back and take another reading, display it, take another reading, display it, take another reading, display it, and so on. So I'm going to take these two blocks and I'm going to put them inside a loop. If anyone gets lost at any time, just yell out nice and loud. I can't see you guys, so if you're having problems, I won't pick it up unless you tell me. To move these blocks inside, I'm just going to draw a big box around both of those, make sure they're both highlighted. You'll see that there's a blue outline around both of them. And I'm going to drag that inside and just very carefully release. Just going to do that again. To select both blocks, I draw a box around them both, and I drag them in. If you don't select them both at the same time, let's suppose I select this one first, and drag in one block, and then drag in the second block. That will still work, but you've now lost that connection. You've lost the wire from one to the other. So I'm just going to put that one back in. Moving my mouse into my IR seeker block, click and hold, 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 and release. Last thing I need to do is change my port. I know that my IR seeker is on port 4, so I'm going to change this to port 4. Set yours to be whatever yours is on. All right, can I just get a quick shout out? How you going with that so far?
Yeah, all good.
Guys, good? Excellent. So what I'm going to do now, you may not have seen it before, but you can actually start your robot off by just pressing this play button. I generally don't teach kids to press the play button, especially if you've got a robot that's got wheels on, because as soon as you press that play button, your robot starts driving, and if it's on the table, it'll drive off the table. But because my robot doesn't have any wheels, it's sitting nice and steady, I'm just going to utilize this play button to save me downloading and finding my program. So I'm just going to hit that download button, play. You guys do the same. And if I go into my document camera, let's have a look. I'm not sure if you can see it. Let's see. Oh. You may see a little number up in the top screen. My number is kind of hidden in shadow, and I can't quite get the light to look at it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back to my program, stop this program, and in my text in grid, I'm just going to change whereabouts I'm displaying that value. So my X value, I'm going to say around about 3 to move it a little bit, and I might move my Y value down to 3. And all that's going to do is move my number a little bit closer to the center of my screen. So if I run this one now, yeah, there we go. You can see that a little bit better now. And so, you can see that number 5 on mine right there. That 5 represents that ball being directly in front. And as I move the soccer ball from side to side, that's going out to 7, out to 8, and out to 9. This sensor actually has quite a wrap around as well, so it's not just 180 degrees, it wraps all the way around so it can kind of see balls that are slightly behind itself. If I bring this ball around, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 when it's directly in front, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Now, Damien,
Yep.
in regards to, with a soccer robot, they normally have attachments and things at the front to hit the ball and so forth. How good is this sensor when you have these obstacles potentially around it? Does it make much of a difference?
As long as the obstacles aren't too thick. There's a fair amount of infrared light coming out of this ball here, and so if you've got a couple of beams in between, see if I just put my finger in the way there, it's still breathing that as 5 or 6. So something like that thin is not going to block it off. If I get my whole hand inside there, you can see it's now saying 7. So it still actually sees a ball, but it might not be directly in front. If I take the ball away, so I've hidden it under the table here, oh, you're still seeing 7. There we go, you should see 0. We're probably picking up a little bit of extra light here. So it should go to 0 if the ball isn't there. So with the ball around, we'll see it, and even if I've got some kind of obstacles in between, look, there's my hand in between, and it's still registering a 5 there. So it still does pick up some red light going through.
But so obviously, you know, you can have a couple of little bits, but don't block it too much because it can cause issues.
Pretty much. A lot of teams like to put it right on the front, and they're not too worried about sensing the ball behind. If it goes too far behind, they're not too worried about that. As long as they can see the ball out to the side, that's enough for them.
Yep. And so, one last comment, and sorry for all these questions, but basically what you're doing here is what I would normally do using the port view setting. Right?
So you can also do this with the port view. I prefer to do it with the program because we're starting to get the kids to look at how to send that information around. So it's not only just viewing the port, but we're actually manipulating the data.
Okay.
How'd people go with that? They get it working?
I haven't got my sensors reading at the moment.
So it's not spitting out any values at all?
No, I've just pulled up what sensors I've got connected in, but the IR sensor or the compass sensor isn't even saying that it's actually plugged in.
So you can see the blocks here. You can see the blocks on your software.
I can see I put the software onto the blocks onto my software, but when I bring up the indicator on down the bottom to show me what I've got connected, the block showing up there.
So you don't have these yellow blocks down the bottom here, is that what you're saying?
No, I do have the yellow blocks. I don't have where it says EV3 on the download and down there when you the little the one on that one. I don't have showing anything connected there.
All right. So if you have a look at mine doesn't have it either, and the reason why is because that it doesn't have auto identify with the high technic sensors.
Okay.
You'll find that only the official Lego sensors can auto identify.
Okay, so mine, when I put the ball in front of it, it's not reading anything.
Are you getting a number though? Are you getting like a 0 or
Getting nothing.
nothing at all? Are you getting anything on the screen, or does it just say starting or running?
Hang on, I just downloaded it again.
Yep.
Okay. Program. No. No, I'm lost at the moment.
So go into your 2 bits of paper, which lists all your folders.
Yeah, that's the
So
new one.
second tab in. If you haven't changed your project name, yours should still be called Project.
Yep.
And then inside Project probably will be Program if you haven't changed that.
So it's reading it fine here. And if you move it around, does it give a different value?
Oh, hang on. Yeah, it's up there now.
Awesome. All right, pop the ball in front.
Yes,
Is that working?
yeah, I've got 0.
Is the ball turned on?
Yes. No, it's right. When right in front it's 0. When I move it to the side, I get numbers.
Ah, okay.
So I've got 0. When it's right in front, it's reading 0 to 0.
Yep. And so when you go off to the side, what numbers do you get?
When I go to the left, I get 2, 3. When I go to the right, I get 6, 7.
2, 3, and 0 directly in front.
And 0 directly in front.
All right, you may have a slightly different version to what I've got, but the good thing is that you're getting different numbers depending on where the ball is. So you just have to keep track of that.
Yep.
All right, so that's really good. Everyone's got their ball being detected by the by your EV3. I'm just going to switch my ball off because they do go through batteries fairly quickly. So if you get a chance, if you're not using the ball, just make sure you switch it off. What we're going to do now is we're going to use that information to get the robot to do some stuff. All right, so I want to say to the robot, okay, robot, if you can see the ball directly in front of me, I want you to beep. But if it's either side of me, I don't want it to beep. So to do that, we're going to put in a structure that's called a switch. Quick shout out, who's used a switch before?
Yep.
Yep.
Good. Anyone never used a switch before? No, excellent. So I'm going to take this switch block, I'm going to place it inside my loop here. Let me just shrink down a fraction. And what I'm going to say now, all right, switch, you need to make a decision based on the number that's coming in. If you open up the switch block to find the different things you can do, you'll probably find that you may only have the high technique angle one in there, which is not a lot of use to us. What we really want is the high technique IR seeker. So to do that, we're going to do it slightly differently. Rather than grabbing the sensor that we're looking at from here, we're going to choose the one that just says numeric. And what numeric allows us to do is to feed in a number here to tell the switch what decision to make. So I'm going to go back to that yellow IR seeker block, and the yellow IR seeker block is going to be the value that drives this switch. So we take a reading from our IR seeker, we send it through to the switch, and then based on the number that we get, we're going to do some different actions. So at the moment, the default is to set up with two different actions. What action do I want to do when I receive the number 1? What action do I want to do when I receive the number 0? What I want to say is that when the ball is directly in front, I'm going to make a beeping sound. So in my case, the number I get when I'm directly in front is the number 5. If I get the number 5, I'm going to make it do a beep. So sound file, just play a note, and A note's fine for a second. So at the moment it's going to come through here and it's going to check the number. If I get the number 5, do this action here. If I get the number 0, do this bottom action. And at the moment, if it doesn't see the ball, I just want it to do nothing at all. What do you think is going to happen if it gets the number, say, 7 or 8? With the switch block, it has to do one action or the other action. What do you think it's going to do if it gets the number 7? This little dot here, this little dot on the top one is what we call the default case. And the default is what happens is if this switch receives a number or an input that it doesn't understand, it goes, I don't know what that is, I'm just going to do the default. So at the moment, I've got a reading, I've got an action for 5 and I've got an action for 0. If I get a 7, it's going to do this top action. If I get a 6, it's going to do this top action. If I get a 2, it's going to do this top action. If I get a 27, it's going to do this top action, because that is the default case. What I want to do is I want to switch the default case to be this bottom one here. So now, if I get a 5, I do the top action. If I get a 0, I do the bottom action. If I get any number that is not 0 or 5, I will do the default case, which is this bottom one down here. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's run this one. I'm going to hit the play button. Turn mine on. I heard a beep. Oh, why is mine not downloading? I can hear stuff working, which is good. Mine won't want to download though. Alright, my computer's just died on me, so I'm just going to quickly reset. Alright, so is that working? I'm hearing lots of beeping. Is that good?
Doing less than... That's 0.
I'm just restarting my software. It just died on me, so I'm just going to have to put it back together again.
Should we still be able to see the reading number up top of the screen?
No, because we have removed that display block.
Yeah.
We can put that display block back in again if you want, but at the moment it's been removed. If you've got that
I actually
working,
was going to ask the same question, because particularly for debugging, you want to see the value and that given the beep at the same time.
All right, so let's do that. Let's put that back in again. So what we want to do now is send that information to two places. We're going to send it to the display block, and we are also going to send it to our switch.
Can you change the screen, please, Damien, so we can see your computer?
So firstly, I'm going to send it through to the display. Wired text grid. And I'm also going to send it through to my switch, which will be a numeric switch. So if you watch carefully now, I've sent that information through to my display block, but I'm going to do the same thing again. With my mouse, I'm just going to go click and drag, and I'm sending that same information through to my switch. So that reading I'm taking out of my IR speaker is going to two different places. So it needs to be a 5. That needs to be a 5. Alright, let me check to see if this is going to work now.
So we've got an issue with ours when the ball gets close to the robot, it changes from 5 to 7 when it's in front.
Sorry, what was that? I missed that.
We've got an issue with ours when our ball's directly in front of the robot, in front of the sensor. If it gets too close, it goes from a 5 to a 7.
5 to 7. All right, so that's something that we'll need to look at as we go along. But at the moment, you should get something that looks something like this, where it's not beeping.
Yep.
Beeping, and as we go past, it's no longer beeping.
Yep.
All right, so at least we've identified when the ball is directly in front of us, and we've got an action that happens. We're going to extend on this now, and what I want to have is I'm going to have that beep when it's right in the middle, but what I want is if it's slightly off to the side, we're going to do a quieter beep. So we're going to be changing the volume. We're going to be changing the volume of our beeps. I know that 5 is in the middle, 6 is off to the side. If I can find a 6, there's my 6, and I've got a 4 on the other side as well. So what I need to do now is come up with some new actions to say what happens if I receive a 6 and what happens if I receive a 4. Lots of different ways of doing that. The way that we're going to start off with today is just by adding in some more what we call cases. With my switch at the moment, I've got my 2 different setups. I've got a 5 and I've got a 0. If you look very carefully on the top left-hand corner of the switch, there's a little plus button. Now that little plus button allows me to add a case. So if I click on that, it'll give me another section down here. And I'm going to say, you're going to be case if I receive a 4. I'm going to add another case. You're going to be the case if I receive a 6. And in this case here, I'm going to put in another sound effect, but this time it's going to be the same note, but this time I'm going to make it a lot quieter. I might make it, say, 30% volume level. And the same down the bottom here. So what you should find now is as you slowly move that ball across, the volume should change as it goes along.
Cool.
All right, quick shout out. How people going with that? Still working on it or got it working well?
We're good here in Rockhampton.
Good in Gladstone.
Good in Gladstone and Mackay?
We're both stuck at the moment. I'm just updating.
I can't even get it reading at the moment, so.
Still won't even read, so you can't see that display up on screen?
You're getting numbers, but he's getting still the opposite ones. And so he put 0 up the top as the reading when the ball was in front, but it's not making it count.
So you're getting the numbers changing, but when you put the 0 in front here, it's not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
It's not even. If you look on the screen where you get where you can tell where the program's going, you know, the wavy line through the top.
Yep.
What it's reading on your program.
Yep.
It's not sent. Nothing's coming up at all. It's not sensing it.
Right.
Sensing it on the brick, but nothing's coming up on the screen.
So, have you tried doing the download? So try just rather than running it directly from the screen, hitting that little download button.
Yes.
And then when you go and find it in your brick itself, and run it in the brick itself. So second tab, 2 bits of paper, scroll down until you find project.
Yeah.
And inside project should be your program. Can you see your program there?
I can see project.
Yep. Press the center button to open the project folder.
Yeah, I have.
What's inside the project folder? Okay, so
it comes up as IR. When it comes up on the screen as numbers, seeker.
yep.
It doesn't make a sound at all. I get the numbers coming. You can move the ball around, but no noise.
All right. So if you go back to your program, a couple of things to check on. So firstly, make sure that you're looking at the same port as what's plugged in.
Yeah, it is.
That's definitely right.
Yes.
And so if that's sending through to there, then you're definitely getting the right numbers. This one here is definitely on numeric, is it?
Hang on. Yes, it is definitely on. Yep.
Yep. So you want the number where it sees directly in front. I think you were saying yours was 0.
That's right. Yep.
Should be that first one, playing the sound.
Yes.
And then the next one should have a dot in it as the default case.
Yes.
And that could be any other number. Put the number 3, put the number 7, something like that in.
Put 5 in there.
5 in there, yep. And when you download that one, you get no sound. Is that correct?
That's correct. I get
So you get.
I get IR seeker and I get numbers on the brick, but I get nothing.
And you definitely get the number 0. So you put it in front. It says the number 0.
Yes, it does.
And it's not beeping. All right. On your brick itself, go across to the fourth. On your brick itself, go across to the 4th tab, which is the little spanner. Find the spanner on your robot itself, not on the program.
Sorry, but I've just realised that I haven't got it in the loop to start with.
Ah, okay. That means it'll do it only once. It probably didn't see a ball, decided I'm not going to play any note at all, and then it finished.
Okay, I'm just putting it in a loop now.
Make sure those data wires stay connected. If you lose them, just pop them back in again.
Yeah. And bring that one across.
So, Damien, whilst we're waiting for them to make some changes, obviously some different sensors might bring up different values or be slightly different. Is there a way to reset to default or something to that effect?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to jump onto the High Technique website and have a look at the specs.
No, that's cool. But I guess with this, where you can add different cases, as long as they've got different numbers, you can tell it to do whatever you want it to do.
As long as we're getting separate numbers for each thing that it can see, then we can assign different behaviours, different actions, depending on what number comes through. So, yeah. And the nice thing about this IR Seeker, it doesn't give you 0 to 100. We don't have 100 separate different conditions.
Yes.
We'll have at most 9 conditions, 9 or 10 conditions, which just makes life a little bit easier to deal with.
Sure. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions at the moment? I'm hearing beeping. Was that Mackay?
Yeah, but no, that was mine, not his.
Okay.
Damien, the positioning of the sensor doesn't matter greatly, just as long as it's pointing towards the front somewhere?
Yep, at the moment, as long as it's pointing towards the front.
Okay.
I'll download it again.
So I guess, Damien, this is one of the good reasons why it's good to have the information displayed on the screen and the sound, because it then allows us to debug a little bit. When
Exactly.
the action that you can confirm that you are getting a 5 or a 0 in front, and if it's not doing it, then most of the time it's the logic, i.e. it's not in the loop or it's not properly connected.
Yep. That's something we probably should have done. I probably should have done that from the very start, is to keep that up there. We'll be using that block, that display block, a lot to show us what's happening with our robot as we go along. Just like you say, it's great for debugging purposes to figure out what's happening within our robot.
Fantastic.
All right, so I've got everyone else though. They've got a nice loud beep at the start, in front, and then they've got slightly weaker beeps on either side. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Good.
Gladstone.
Good in Rockhampton.
If you haven't already done so, can you make sure you've got some wheels on your robot now? I'm just going to quickly attach some wheels onto my robot. And what we're going to be thinking about now is, rather than doing beeps, how can we get our robot to do some movement? Let me just raise that up a little bit. Okay, how'd you go?
No, I'm still trying to get it up at the moment.
No worries. Jason, I've just noticed on the screen here it says this session is not being recorded.
It should be,
Okay, that's all right.
but I will quickly bolt out just to confirm it.
That sounds promising?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. I just
Excellent.
all the programs off it and re-downloaded it again. So it's the only one that's on there now.
Good.
And it works all right, so.
All right, so I'd say it's probably that not having that loop in there. And that's a great little example there, that if we don't have the loop, it ran through one time, it took a reading, couldn't see a ball, decided not to play anything, and then it finished the program. And that's why we need to have that loop going through. All right, so your little challenge now. I'm going to give you the challenge. I'm not going to solve it for you straight away. We can tell if the ball is in front, or if the ball is to the left, or if the ball is to the right. Your challenge now is to get your robot to turn until it sees the ball. And when it sees the ball, I just want it to stay still. Now, I'm not too worried about the ball going all the way around the back here. Let's just start with just either in front, slightly to the left, slightly to the right. I want you to think about what actions you could be doing with your robot, so that if it saw the ball off to the side here, so for example it saw a 7, what actions does the robot need to do to bring us back so it's directly in front?
And Damien, I can confirm that it is being recorded.
Excellent. So that's your little challenge. I'm going to give you about a 5-minute head start, and then I'm going to start assembling how I would do it. With all these programming challenges, there's always many ways of solving this problem. And so I'm just going to show you the way that I would do it.
Would you just do it how you do the other one? Just to
If the beeps are starting to annoy you, feel free to get rid of the beeps.
But if there are things in here, if you let's see which way is full, it's to the left, isn't it? Just is that next one? That's forward, left close in. If you just
Alright, so I'm going to start assembling how I would do it. So, I'm going to keep the same structure here. Oh, let me go back to my computer. I'm going to keep the same structure. I'm going to get rid of my beeps for the moment. I'm going to say if I receive a 5, I want my robot not to move. So at the moment I'm not going to put anything there because I don't want the robot doing anything. If I receive a 4, I'm going to make my robot. Now I'm not 100% sure, I know I've got to turn one way or the other. Let's say I'm going to put in a left. I can fix this up later if I need to. So I'll put in a left. How much should I turn left by? How many rotations of the wheel should I go?
Can you just put it on?
Yeah. For this one here, I don't want to give it a fixed amount because I don't actually know where that ball is. If that ball's travelling away from me, then I don't want to move one rotation because the ball might still be rotating away from me. So what I want to do is I want to say just keep turning. So I'm going to, in the mode selection, turn it to on. And this is just turn. Off you go, turn, turn, turn. A different part of the instructions will tell us when we need to stop. If I receive a 6, however, I'm going to turn in the other direction. To the right, and I'm going to make this one on. I am going to keep this last option down here. I'm going to call that one 0. If I don't see the ball, and I'm also going to make that the default. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Yep.
Alright, so I'm going to run this one now. Let's just see what happens to it. I'm going to use my download now that I've got a robot that's actually moving. Let me go to document camera. Alright, so go across, find my project, find my program. Alright, and here goes. Whoops, not doing anything. That's because I forgot to turn the soccer ball on. I was just seeing who was paying attention. What? So now it's turning one way. As soon as it's stopped it turns the other way. So I've got a slight problem with my program. What did I forget to do?
Go forward.
No, I don't want to do the forward just yet. I'm going to keep things simple. I just want to stop in front of the ball.
Put another one in there at 5.
Yeah, I didn't actually tell the robot to stop. Now this will be a common thing that kids will do, is they say, I don't want the robot to do anything, so I don't put an instruction in. This isn't the case where we don't want the robot to do anything. There is a very distinct action we want the robot to do when it sees the ball directly in front, and that is stop. So I'm going to grab a move steering, pop that in, and choose the off function. All right, so let's download this one now. My document camera. All right, let's test to see if I've got my ones in the right direction. Oh, not that one. Project program. So if I move a little bit to, oh, so there it goes, it's right in front. If you watch mine very carefully, I'm going to take the ball, let me just move it out here. I'm going to take the ball and move it slightly this way. If I move it slightly this way, the robot should turn the same way. And if you watch very carefully, if I take this one slightly this way, he's turned the wrong direction. And what that's telling me is back in my program, I've got my lefts and rights around the wrong way. So let me take this one here. Instead of doing a minus 100 turn, which gives me to the left, I'll do a positive 100. And this one, instead of positive 100, I'll put a minus 100. All right, let's give this a go now. Download. All right, so directly in front, staying still. Let's turn a little bit. Ooh. Get a little bit of overshoot. So what I found with this one here now is as I'm turning around, it's turning until it sees the ball, but because of the momentum of the robot, it actually goes a little bit too far. It overshoots it. And because it's overshot it, it has now seen the ball on the other side, and so now it starts ramping up, going the other direction. It goes, I can see the ball, I need to stop, but by the time it stops, it's gone too far. So what can I do to make this a little bit better?
Make it slower.
Make it slower, good. So rather than 50%, I might make it, say, 20%.
Can you just show your laptop screen, please, Damien?
Yep. So in my turning blocks, I'm still keeping a nice sharp turn, but this time now I'm doing either 20% or 20%. All right, so let's see if we can find, I'm just going to see if I can get mine on Bluetooth to download. So now, with that slower speed, we shouldn't see that overshooting as much. So give that a go, see how it behaves with yours. All right, so there we are in front. And that's a lot nicer. So I don't have that overshoot anymore. How are people going with that?
Get the question.
Yes.
I had my sensor set at 3 and 5, and 0 it stopped. It would read when I turned it 3, it was okay, but when it turned the other way, it didn't read the 5, so I changed it to 6 and it's okay.
Yep.
Is there any reason why it wouldn't read the 5?
To be honest, they sound like slightly odd numbers coming out of your sensor.
Okay.
They should be centering on 5 and being either side of that. It might be that the soccer ball is not, if your batteries are a little bit low in the soccer ball. Is it working okay with your other robot? Is your other robot working fine?
Yeah, I think so. You were 5 on yours, wasn't it?
You're getting 5 in the middle?
One thing just to check, you're not using the two balls at the same time and therefore reading two balls.
Do you have 2 soccer balls going?
Yeah, we do.
That's 5 there now.
Okay, I'll just try my ball on the...
Okay. Just one thing I've noticed, and I checked here earlier today, if your robot is picking up 2 balls at the same time, it will give spurious results. So
yes.
I do recommend just to use the 1 ball.
In front she's getting 6. So the ball, so it might be the 5. She's getting 5 in front with my ball, but I'm getting 0. So maybe that sensor.
Maybe your sensor. If you flip your sensor over and have a look underneath,
Yeah.
mine here says high technique infrared seeker. What does yours say on the bottom there?
1-1.
Sorry?
Same infrared seeker.
Exactly the same?
Yeah.
All right. When you go to your block in your software,
It's version 2.
version 2, there's a little, there's a mode just here, which you can click on, where you can change the direction or the enhanced direction.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Is yours on direction?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That sensor sounds like it's just giving slightly weird readings. So
All
I
right.
haven't seen those readings before. So I'm wondering if perhaps you've got a faulty sensor.
All right. Maybe it's on.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So we've now got that turning. We've got a gentle turn when it's fairly close, and it stops when it's in the middle. Let's take that idea and just expand it out with a few more cases now. I want it that if it's further around this way, oh, hang on, let me go to my document camera. So at the moment when it's fairly close, it does some gentle corrections to get it back in front. I now want it, if it's a little bit further out here, that it goes slightly faster. So the further away it is from centre, the faster our robot's going to come around. So to do that, we're going to go back into our software and add in some more cases. So at the moment I've got a 5 for the centre, 4 and 6. I also want to have now a 3 and a 7. And I want to make those ones a little bit faster. So what should happen is the robot, if it's too far away, it should quickly start moving. And then as we're closer, it should start to slow down before it gets into the middle where it should stop. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that.
So, Damien, question. When you add a new case, it moves it to the bottom. Is
Yes.
it possible to move that case between, for example, if I wanted 3 to be above the 4 but below the 5, can you move that?
No, you cannot move the case. You can change the number and then move the blocks, but you
Sure.
can't just pick up a case and move it. It would be nice if you could, but unfortunately you can't.
No, thank you.
All right, so that's your next challenge. In the middle stopped, left or right, gentle turns, far left, far right, sharper turns. All right, so this would be how I would do it. I'm going to add in 2 more new cases. I'm going to add in a case for 3, where I'm turning a little bit sharper.
Is that? So it should be that same way. Oh. A and B, not B and C. Oh.
And I'm also going to add in a case for, what was up to 7. 7, which is also going to be moving fairly fast in the other direction. My case statement, my switch statement is starting to get a little bit unmanageable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into tabbed mode. This is something that not many people have seen before, but here on my switch case, up in the top left-hand corner, there's a little button here that says switch to tabbed view. So with switch to tabbed view, if I click on that, it'll now turn it into a whole series of different tabs. Oh. And in fact, what I can do is extend that out. Oh, if I go.
That would make double sense. Because it was just like.
If I move my loop out a little bit bigger, and then with my axe, do that one. There we go. I can start to see more of my cases in there. I'll just make my life a little bit easier. Alright, so I'm going to download that one and give it a go.
Just keep it, just put it here and see if it can stop.
Roll on. So now what I've got is I've got slow movement when it's fairly close to the centre, but if I suddenly have the ball all the way there, we get much faster movement, and I don't get that overshoot. All right, quick shout out. Who's got that working?
Yep. Good enough, Hanson.
Excellent. All right. So the next task. We've found the ball. We can turn towards the ball. We now want to chase down the ball. So what we're going to do is, in our program, at the moment where I've got that option number 5, I'm just going to stop. We're going to put in a very short sequence of movements in here. What I want the robot to do is turn until it sees the ball. I want it to stop. I want it to beep. And then I just want it to chase it down for one rotation of the wheels. At the moment, I don't want to be constantly chasing it down. We're just going to take a little step back and just do kind of like a little charge forward. So, actions we want to be doing is turn to the ball. If you see the ball, stop, beep, short distance, charge down. The beep is important, all right? The reason we're putting the beep in here is really good debugging. What that allows us to do is that every time the robot sees the ball, we will actually hear the beep. And so rather than you chasing around the robot trying to have a look at the screen and seeing if you can find that number 5, when you see the beep, that indicates to you that yes, it's in front. If your robot starts driving forward without doing a beep, then it means we've got other issues. So it's a great way of just debugging what's going on. All right, let's give it a go.
Now we've got 2 robots fighting here, Damien.
Excellent. Alright, I'll just get you guys to turn off your robots at the moment because they're with all the beeping. So did everyone get that one working?
Yep.
Alright, so at a very fundamental level, you stick 2 of those robots down on a field with the ball and you have a very, very rudimentary game of soccer happening. They will chase down the ball. Every time they see it, they'll charge it. So some things you can do to make your life a little bit better. At the moment, if it sees a 0, what's the robot going to do?
Nothing.
It's going to do nothing. Now, if in a game of soccer, if you can't see the ball, we probably don't want to do nothing. We might want to do a slow turn. We might want to do some sort of search algorithm. We might want to put some more information in there to just try and get your robot to be looking for the ball a little bit better. But that's your fundamental part of the IR Seeker. Any questions about that?
So, Damien,
Yes.
having refereed lots of games but never actually programmed, what sort of distances can that seeker do to find that ball? Because I've sometimes seen it where it's way down the other end and it's a bit, you know, too far for it to pick it up. Well, do you know roughly what sort of distances they can find?
With the new version 2 of the IR Seeker, you can actually pick it up from one end of the field to the other end of the field. With the new soccer balls and the new IR Seeker, they have put in some new technology so that you can see that all the way across. If you're using the version 1 of the IR Seeker, which I'm using today, then you should be able to get at least kind of 50 centimetres to a metre distance of seeing things.
Okay. And so how do you tell which version, whether you've got version 1 or version 2 of the Seeker?
On your actual IR Seeker itself, in there, let me just focus that. So in here, it'll actually say V2 on your IR Seeker. I'll turn it the right way around so you can read. Does anyone have a version 2?
No. Like, mine, how long has the version 2 been out for?
A couple of years, I think.
Because I bought mine earlier this year and I'm not seeing V2 on it. It was part of a soccer kit.
Maybe I need to investigate that. Maybe they have taken off the V2 branding now that it's been around for a while. But I know you haven't been able to buy the V1 for quite a while.
Is there any other way, like through diagnostics from the program or something it tells you what version it is?
I'd have to look that up. It's probably somewhere in the High Technic website. But
Sure,
yeah,
no,
off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure.
No, that's fine. It's just, that's a tip that I might put on the website and all that with soccer for more accuracy and better performance to use this version 2 Seeker compared to the version 1.
Yep, definitely. So what we're going to do, we've got that program. That program works quite nicely. I'm just going to change the name of that program. So rather than calling it a program, I'm just going to call this IR Seeker. So up the top here in my Programs tabs, I've just double-clicked inside there and changed that. Because that program works, we're not going to mess with it. We're just going to leave it alone for the moment. We'll come back and we'll use bits and pieces from it a little bit later. But at the moment, we don't want to play with it. I'm going to open up a new program. We're not opening a new project. We're adding a new program. So I'm going to click that little plus button next to that program tab. Choose new program. And this one I'm going to call Compass. Alright, so now with the compass, I've got myself a High Technic compass. And I'm going to take that compass and I'm just going to plug it into the robot. And in my case, I'm going to connect it up to port 1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start getting some information from this compass. Yes, we could go through the port view and find it in the port view, but I want to look at it through the program. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to go into my yellow blocks, find the High Technic compass block. I'm going to set mine to be on port 1.
Change your camera over, please, Damien.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Port 1, because that's where mine is. Yours might be different. And then I'm just going to display that result up on my screen. Changing to text in grid mode. Changing the word Mindstorms. I don't want to display Mindstorms. I want to display my own information. So I'm going to choose the wired one. And I'm wiring the information across like that. Put it all inside a loop because I want it to go over and over again. And then I can run it. So I'm just going to change where I display it so it's in the center of my screen. Just to make it a bit easier for me to see what's going on. So I'm not using the soccer ball anymore. Make sure your soccer ball is turned off to save batteries. once you've done that, you should see a number. At the moment, I've got a number kind of around 38, 39. The compass is measuring the Earth's magnetic field and figuring out which direction it's pointing. So as I turn it around,
to 0 now.
I can see the compass reading changing. So if I turn mine like this, I'm on 0 degrees, and that's telling me that that's north, or 359 degrees. There we go, 0 degrees. So I've got a 0 in here, which tells me I'm currently pointing north, which means if I'm pointing the other direction, hopefully, I should get 180.
That's where you get that.
Yeah, it's not really you get it out. It's a and 0
I mean, all my numbers are in the 200s. I can't get 0. I can't get anything else. They're all in the 200s.
They're all in the 200s. All right, you're definitely on the right port. In your program, you're definitely on port, so mine's on port 1.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yep, that one's fine.
Yep.
And as you turn it around, do the numbers change randomly or they change predictably in the 200s?
Yeah, they're going up. They go back down again.
Yours is wrong.
And then they go back up again?
Yeah, so it's just within the 200s. They go up and down. Sort of, yeah, they're turning over.
Just to double check as well, are you running a high technique compass sensor?
That should just be right.
Yep, that's what it says. High technique compass.
High technique compass sensor. All right, and in your program, you've definitely grabbed the high technique compass sensor block.
Yep.
All right, that's a little bit odd.
So, and Damien, sorry to interrupt as well. The two robots we've got here in Rockhampton are pointing slightly different for north.
Yeah.
Yep. So these are not perfect. If you have a look at the tables that you're putting them on, do you have big metal runners underneath your tables?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Just keep it the same direction and move it to a place that's not with a big metal runner underneath. Do you get a slightly different reading?
No, they're pretty, I would say close to 90 degrees difference.
90 degrees different to north?
Yes.
Oh.
We're not 90 degrees, but we're a long way different.
Are you getting the same number though? If robots are pointing the same direction, are you getting the same number?
No. My 0 and their 0 is about 90 degrees difference.
Wow, okay. It should be.
One at 0 and one at 338.
All right, that's kind of close. Can I get you please with your software, just to double check that you are on absolute heading. So in the mode, go measure, absolute heading.
Measure absolute heading. Yeah.
Yep. So that's good. Well, what we'll do is we'll download it and have it next to each other, but not near metals or, because we've got a fair bit of computer equipment in here. So if we move it over here.
I've solved mine, Damien.
Yep, what was the issue? Can you remember?
I think it's the position of where the sensor is. I've mounted it almost on top of the block, and as soon as I mount it there, I only get numbers in the 200s. So I remove it off the block, off the brick. I move it off the brick and take it away. It didn't work fine.
Okay, so what's happening there is you're probably picking up a little bit of electromagnetic interference.
Off the brick.
So what I'm going to get you guys to do, if possible, see how mine's mounted on the side there? We want it to get away from any sort of magnetic influence. So one way we can do that is by mounting it up nice and high. So I'm going to take mine, and I'm just going to put it on a little beam so that I can put it up nice and high away from the rest of the robot.
So maybe 20 degrees difference now?
Yeah.
So Damien, we've moved them close together away from desks and tables, and they're about 20 degrees difference now.
That's not too bad. What we're after here is not so much commonality, but repeatability. With your particular sensor, if your sensor can do the same thing each time. So what I've done here now, let's turn that sideways, I've taken my compass sensor and I've extended it as far away from the robot as possible. As the motors spin around, they generate what's called back EMF, back electromagnetic force. And by just moving that away, you might be able to get a slightly better reading.
It's pretty much exactly the same now. 2 degrees difference now.
Okay, so now that we moved it higher, Damon, it looks like we've got 2 degrees difference.
Excellent, that sounds a lot better. So when you ever see soccer playing robots, they always have their compass up and out of the way. So there you go, there's mine, mounted up nice and high, away from everything, just to get away from any sort of metallic objects or any sort of magnetic fields. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Is anyone still trying to get the information up?
Good in Gladstone.
Good in Gladstone? All right, so we might move on now. Next part.
Can you just give us 60 seconds, please? I'm just putting it up a bit higher.
Yep.
So just wanting to confirm. Okay, cool. So as a referee of this event, Damo,
Yes.
if I see that the robot is not, that's pretty close. So if they're having troubles, would you, as a referee, say, hey guys, it might be in your best interest to mount it up higher?
Definitely. That's an easy fix that will sort out a lot of issues straight away.
Okay, cool. So these are a couple of tips, and I will write them down on a piece of paper of, getting out. So, version 2 of the IR sensor is more accurate, and having your compass up higher makes it more accurate as well.
Yep, definitely. Alrighty, so the next part now is to start getting our robot to understand which way it's pointing. For the moment, we're just going to assume that we want to head north. Now, on the day of the competition, you can't be guaranteed which way the fields are going, but for the moment, we're going to say, all right, north is the way that I want to be heading. So the same as we did with the soccer ball, getting the robot to turn to see the soccer ball, we're now going to get the robot to turn until it sees north, and when it sees north, we're going to get it to stop. This gives us a slight challenge in that we now have 360 different possible cases, and we do not want to set up a switch statement that has 360 different cases. Like, what do I do if I see 0? What if I do if I see 1? What if I do if I see 2? So we're going to break it down. Instead of having 360 different places, we're going to set it up to have 3 different spots. We're going to say, are we roughly pointing in the right direction, give or take a few degrees? Are we too far to the left, or are we too far to the right? And in fact, we're actually going to start off by pointing south. The reason we're going to point south is because north actually has that rollover from 0 to 360, which introduces a few little issues. So if we just stick with south, then that's going to make our life a little bit easier to start with. So what we're going to do, next challenge, is we're going to say turn to south. We're going to say that south is going to be roughly kind of 170 to 190 degrees. This gives us a little bit of leeway because it's going to be very rare that the robot is directly and precisely on 180 degrees. Sometimes it might be a little bit either side. So if we give it a little bit of nudge distance, a little bit of leeway. We're going to say, as long as I'm pointing anywhere between 170 to 190 degrees, then I'm going south. I'm going to say that I am too far to the left if I am between 0 and 170. 0 to 170. And I'm going to be too far to the right if I am 190 through to 360. So what I want to do is actually break this down into 3 different areas. There's a couple of different ways you can do that in the software. I'm going to show you one way that we can do this. So we're going to use a block that's called the range block. So if you go into the red blocks and find the data operators one, red data operations, third from the end is a block that says range. So this range block allows us to take information in and do something within a particular range. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this inside my block. I might actually put it over there at the moment. This range block has a couple of different options. It's first asking, is it an inside range or an outside range? It's saying, what is the number that we're going to check to see about the range? What is the lower bound, so the smaller part of the range, and what is the upper bound? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the information from my compass sensor and feed it into this range block. I'm going to say, all right, range block, you're between 170 and 190. And what this does now, it takes in the number, it checks to see if it's on the inside of 170 and 190. If it is on the one between 170 and 190, then it's going to spit out a result here that's going to be a true signal. This is where we get into what's called Boolean operators. So this will say, is it a true or a false answer? Is the result true or false? If it's between 170 and 190, this is going to give me a true value. If it's not between 170 and 190, then it's going to give me a false value. I'm going to take that information and I'm going to send it into a switch. The switch I'm going to do is what we call a logic switch. Now, we've done a numeric switch. Numeric switch allows us to put in lots of different numbers. The logic switch only allows us a true or a false. What do you do if the result is true? What do you do if the result is false? You'll see there is no little plus button up here. We can't add another case in. So I'm going to take the result of this and I'm going to place it in there. So this now takes a reading, figures out if it's asks the question, are you between 170 and 190? If the answer is true, it'll do this action up the top here. If the action is false, if the result is false, it'll do a different action. If the result is true, what do we want our robot to do? Anyone?
No, turn 180.
No, I'm aiming for south at the moment. So I want it to be pointing south, not north, like I said before, but pointing south.
Right, stop.
We want it to stop, yeah, so let's put in a stop. If it is false, so if it's not between 170 and 190, what do I want to do?
You want to turn.
Which way?
I was going to say, you need to do another check to know whether you need to go left or right.
Exactly. We're not sure which way we need to turn at the moment. We do know that we have to turn, but we're not sure which way. So what we need to do is put in another check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another compass sensor, and that compass sensor I'm going to throw into another range. And with this range now, let me just make sure that one's on port 1. The range is going to say, am I inside 0 to 170? And if that's true, we're going to put another switch. What we have here is a switch inside a switch. So we sometimes call these ones nested switches or Russian doll switches. I'm going to make that one logic and feed that one in like that. Let me just zoom out a fraction. So now, if it is between 170 and 190, I'm going to stop the robot. If it's not between 170 and 190, I do another check. I'm now checking between if it's 0 and 170. If it is between 0 and 170, what do I want the robot to do?
Turn right.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, so we're going to figure it out. We'll do a turn on. Let's start with right. Let's see what happens. Let's keep it fairly slow at the moment. I'm going to make that 20% power. If it's not between 0 and 170, so if this gets worked out to be false, what should I do?
Going the other way.
Other way. Because I've already looked after if it's between 170 and 190. That's already been taken care of. What I'm not sure about is if it's between 0 and 170. So let's turn the other direction. Just double check to make sure that that second sensor reading is on the right port. All right, we're going to give this a go. My guy is trying to point north, which is no good at all, so I'm going to spin those directions around. Instead of doing the right on the top and the left on the bottom, I'm doing left on the bottom and I'm doing right on the top. So now, if I take him too far across, he goes that way. No matter where I put him, he's always turning. And I can see on my screen as well, if I'm looking down here on my screen, can't quite see because of the light, but you can actually see those numbers and make sure that it's between 170 and 190. And in fact, I'm finding that's pretty reliable. I might actually shrink down that range. Instead of 170 to 190, I'm going to make that 175 to 185. And then I'm looking for between 170 and 175.
Straight to the one. Okay. Goes very straight to 180.
Damien, can you just show your computer again, please?
Yeah.
So we can see the program.
All right, how are people going with that?
Yeah, good.
Working?
Damien, mine seems really slow updating. It hunts, it goes one way and another way, but it only seems to be updating the a couple of seconds.
Is it a very jerky motion? If it's very jerky motion, check in your program to make sure that when you're doing your turns, you're doing it on the on mode, not on for one rotation. If you do it on for one rotation, it'll turn one rotation, then it'll check the sensor. Turn another rotation and check the sensor.
No, that'll fix it. That's good.
So I'm gonna harp on that one because that's something that kids often do. So what they'll do is when they get their robot to turn, they'll do something like this, on for one rotation. The problem with that is, as soon as the robot gets to that command, the robot will turn one rotation of the wheel, so it's not one rotation of the robot, one rotation of the wheel, but during the time that it's doing that one rotation, it's not checking the compass sensor.
Yeah.
So it's got to wait until that rotation is finished before we get back to the compass sensor. By making this one just on, it says, all right, start the robot turning, and then quickly duck out of that program and figure out what the next reading is going to be. So that's something that kids often do. If you see robots moving in a jerky fashion like that, that's usually what it means. I'm hearing laughter, so I'm assuming that's a good thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was doing the dance.
All right, can I get a quick shout out? Has everyone got that?
Yeah, the only problem I'm having here, Damien, and I'm happy to work through it, is mine will turn only one way, and then it will stop at the 180, regardless of where you start in position.
All right, so check your program. Make sure you've got a left turn and a right turn.
Yes, I surely have that.
When you're measuring it from the right port.
Yes.
Mine's on port 1. And your range should be inside.
Yep.
0 to be, in my case, I've bumped mine up to 175 now.
Yeah, that's what I've done.
With your moving blocks here, I've got mine as B plus C and B plus C.
Yes, got that too.
It's not C plus B, is it? They're both B plus C?
Both B plus C.
And it's only turning one direction?
That's correct. It will do a full circle and stop at 180, but it's not turning one way, half and the other. So I'm happy to keep tinkering. It's probably just a join not joined up properly or something to that effect.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one, sorry.
Yep, no, that's all right. Just continue and I'll just keep tinkering.
Yep. Alrighty, so we've got two fundamental parts of our soccer working now. We know which way we're pointing, but we also know where the ball is. So the challenge now is to how do we start to integrate it all together. What would be really nice is if we could keep track of our compass sensor and which way we're pointing at all times during the program. So rather than every time I want to check the compass to see which way I'm going, I don't want to run this whole program over and over and over and over again. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to assign what's called a variable. Has anyone here played with a variable before?
Yeah.
A couple people have? Good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this new variable. This new variable is going to just keep track of which rough way I'm pointing. The compass tells me exactly which way I'm pointing, but there's 360 values in that. That makes life very difficult. So I'm going to set up this variable that says, am I pointing in the right direction? Am I pointing to the left? Or am I pointing to the right? So to do that, we're going to go into these red blocks. Variables are represented by these suitcases, and the suitcases are a way of storing information. So I'm going to grab a suitcase, I'm going to bring it up here, and I'm just going to drop it in at this point here where we know that we are pointing in the right direction. I'm going to give my variable a name. So there's a little white box up the top here where if I hover over it says variable name. If I click on that, I'm going to say add variable. I'm just going to call this direction. And I'm going to say, if I get to this point in my program, then I'm going to say, all right, direction, I'm going to write a numeric value. I'm going to give this suitcase a number. And in my case here, I'm going to give the number 0. Now, you can give it any number you want, but we're going to keep things a little bit simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that, so my direction, did I call it direction? Yeah. Direction variable 0 is equal to pointing the right way. I'm going to say 1 if I am pointing to the left. I'm going to say 2 if I am pointing to the right.
So is the right way straight in front?
The right way, yes. Yeah, let me do that. Pointing straight in front. That's probably a better way than saying the right way. So now in my program, rather than me constantly asking the compass, what's the compass reading? Is it between 175 and 185? Okay, if it's not that, is it between 0 and 175? I can just say, what's the variable direction? Is the variable 0? Is it 1? Or is it 2? So, heading back to my program, I have set up this variable direction to be 0. Over down in here, I'm going to say, if I get to this point, I'm going to say variable direction, I'm going to write the value 1. And in this one down the bottom here, I'm going to say write the value 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm now going to do is I'm actually going to strip some information out of this. So I'm going to get rid of the motors. Delete the motor, delete the motor, delete the motor. So now, this thing doesn't turn my robot around. All it does is it loads the variable with either 0, 1, or 2 to tell me which way I'm pointing. We're now going to do something a bit tricky. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. In between any two blocks, you find those two little grey plugs. If I go to the first plug and just do a little click, it just opens it up a little bit. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to start a parallel program. So the whole time, this is constantly checking my compass saying, which way am I pointing? Am I pointing forward? Am I pointing left? Am I pointing right? And it'll keep loading that variable with a 0, a 1, or a 2. What I want to say is I'm going to now put in a switch down the bottom here. I'm going to call this a numeric switch. And I am going to use the direction variable. In this case, I'm not going to write to it, I'm going to read from it. I want to know what it is. These ones are write commands, so I'm putting in new information. With my switch, I'm using a read command, and I'm saying, what is the value? You'll see this is slightly ghosted out. This isn't running at the moment. But now that I have created a space here, if I go to this first plug, click and hold, 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 into that second plug and release, we now get a solid colour. We're now running these things in parallel. For those teachers out there looking at the technology curriculum, well, one of the things that is put into that curriculum is this idea of parallel processing. So this is a way of teaching it. So now I have all this complicated stuff up the top here reading the compass sensor, and now that I know it's working, I can kind of ignore that. I know that my variable will be a 0 if I'm pointing straight ahead. It'll give me a 1 if I'm pointing off to the left, and it'll give me a 2 if I'm pointing off to the right. So now with my numeric switch, just like I did before, I can set this up with 3 cases. Case 0, case 1, and case 2. So now down in this switch here, if my variable is a 0, I'm going to say, all right, robot, you're not going to move. So we're going to turn you off. If I get a 1, I'm going to turn to the right, on. And if I get a 2, we're going to turn to the left.
Oh, you've got to. Starts.
Oh, I forgot I've got to put all this inside a loop, so it keeps doing it over and over again. So now when we look at this code, that's a lot cleaner. Can you see how much more sense this makes? So rather than constantly battling that compass sensor and those 360 different numbers, what we've got here now is just a straight, well, am I pointing ahead? Am I pointing to the left? Am I pointing to the right? This program should behave exactly the same as the last one. There shouldn't be any difference at all. But what we've done is we've set it up, we've structured it in a much nicer way. I'm going to give it a go, make sure it is actually working. Oh. I've got my lefts and rights around the wrong way again, so let me just come in here, minus 100 and 100. I'm just going to slow it down a little bit too. Mine was going a little bit too fast, so I might make 30% power. I can hear one bouncing side to side. I think you've got your lefts and rights wrong.
Yeah.
Happy we're going with that one.
Yeah, I've still got the same problem, Damien, where it will only turn one direction.
Yeah, I've got that problem too.
Jason, are you able to pop your screen up on the big screen for me to have a close look at, or is that not possible?
Sure, let's see if I can do that.
So is that yours or is that mine?
This is mine.
That's yours? All right. Let me have a
So I'm
look.
going to zoom in just a little bit. Okay. So we've got the start where it splits into two parts.
Yeah.
Here is absolute heading.
Yep.
And then we've wire mapped it. This here is just displaying it on a grid to tell me the angle, and it reads into here. And I have the inside value of 175 to 185.
Yeah. That's going through to a logic switch. You're loading 0, you're loading 1, you're loading 2. You got inside 0 to 175. All right, so that all looks fine. What I'll get you to do is place your robot on the ground. Hold it just a fraction above the ground, so the wheels aren't touching.
Yep.
And you should be able to see your compass numbers. So can I get you, with your compass numbers, just to, while it's sitting on your hand, just move it around. Let me know. Move it around until until it's between 0 and 175. If it's between 0 and 175, those wheels should be spinning a particular direction. If you move it beyond that point, so it's above 185, the wheels should spin in the opposite direction.
They are not. As soon as you go, whether you go a little bit off left or a little bit off right, it tries to turn the same way.
And you're seeing the numbers on your screen, you're actually seeing the right numbers. You're seeing the correct numbers?
That's correct.
That sounds bizarre. What's happening there?
Now you can see this part. So
Can you, sorry, I've lost yours. Can you pop yours back up again?
Okay.
No problem.
So here you can see I've got it off there.
Off. Yep.
And then that one is turned one way and that is turned the other way.
Yeah, that looks perfect.
Okay. I might just reconnect them.
Can you make the left turn 100% power and the right turn 10% power?
Yes.
Because I want to see if it's actually a problem with the turn or if it's not registering those blocks.
So for everyone who's watching this video, here's one way to debug your program.
So, Gladstone, you were having the same issue, were you?
Now,
Okay. No, it looks like it's only reading one of the blocks.
Yeah, mine's only reading the right.
It's only reading, so it's not doing the slow one, it's only doing the fast one?
That's correct.
All right, what I'm going to get you to do, please, with your direction, I'm going to get you to take that direction variable and put it up on the display. So with mine here, we're going to do the same way as we put the compass value up. We're going to put your variable on the screen to see what information is in that variable.
Okay.
Put it down into a different Y value, so the Y value will lower it down.
So 1 or -1?
Put the Y value as about 5, so that should put it on line 5 on your screen, just so it doesn't sit on top of your compass information.
Yep.
Question, should I still have the range block in there?
Sorry, say again?
Should I still have the range block? Oh no, you're up the top. Ignore that.
Good.
Okay, so I've done that.
Should be, as you turn it around, you should be able to see that it should be a 0 when it's pointing in the right direction, and hopefully if those ones are being loaded incorrectly, you should be able to see a 1 if you turn to the left, and a 2 if you turn to the right, or vice versa. Guys in Gladstone, were you able to do that?
See the 0 when it's at the right one, but I can't see the 1 or 2.
Okay, it's not really showing the value.
Okay, if it's not showing the value, go back up into your program and delete the block where you're displaying the compass reading, because they're overriding there. You'll get some flicker. So this one just here, I'm going to delete that one so that we're not showing the compass number. I'm only interested in that variable, the direction variable.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, was it Mackay having those problems as well, or was that Gladstone?
Mackay, yep.
Okay. All right, so guys, in Mackay, so when you just hold the robot up off the ground and move it from side to side, you can see the 0, that's right, isn't it?
Yep.
But you can't see a 1 or a 2?
Nothing.
How'd you go, Jason?
Yeah, it's sorry. I missed one, the wide connector. So just bear with me for a second.
You missed a connector?
Oh, just when I moved it across to reading the wire. Okay, so we've got one. No, it only reads a 1 and 0.
Only reads a 1 and 0. Can you pop your program back up on screen?
Sure.
Only reads a 1 and 0, which means it's never ever loading that 2.
So you would think that it's in this logic here, wouldn't you?
Yes. So that one's being sent across, measure direction.
Okay, that's
0
going to...
175.
So it's inside?
Direction, right and a right. Direction name. So guys in Mackay, I think you're having the same issue. We're just trying to figure out why it's doing that. It's not loading in that 2.
If it only turns right, try making it turn like the one that's supposed to turn left, try making it turn right as well. Sometimes.
That's a good idea. So if you scroll down, and if you change your left and right turns, and make your condition 1 a right turn and your condition 2 a left turn. So at the moment it's only turning right. That's correct, isn't it?
That's correct.
All right, so if you change that middle one to be a 100 and the bottom one to be a minus 100 in the turn, let's see if it'll only turn left.
I did that up the top in the other direction, but it only turned the other way.
It did only turn the other way? All right, so for some reason it's not loading that number 2, which means your compass sensor is not making it into that next section. With your compass sensor, you were able to see that it went from 0 to 360, is that right?
Yes.
Yep, so it's definitely we're seeing those 0 to 360s. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try something slightly different. All right, so what we're going to do is rather than checking the compass sensor in 2 different places, we're going to check the compass sensor in 1 place only. So I'm going to take the compass sensor and I'm going to load that number directly into its own variable. And this variable I'm going to call a compass. We're going to need to have a right function. Oh, wrong one. Right numeric. And that is going to go directly into the direction. Not direction, sorry. Compass. So I'm taking the compass value and I'm loading it into the variable. I am then using that variable, that compass variable, I'm going to read numeric, and that is going to drive my range block. So that's not going to make a lot of impact at that point, but down in this point here, rather than reading my compass for a second time, I'm just going to take that same compass variable. And that compass variable, I'm going to do a read numeric, and that is what's going to get loaded into there. So instead of doing 2 separate compass readings, we're just doing a single compass reading. Let's try that now.
Okay. let me just show you what my screen does. So how do you get rid of the second wire if it's connected?
Go to the end point where it connects up to and click and drag it out. So go to the connector point. No, so that's the starting connector point. Go to the ending connector point. That's it. Click and drag it off and release. And I'll get rid of that.
Thank you.
Now you've got your direction variable there. Make sure that's the compass variable.
So does that look correct?
To start off with, now your switch inside your switch, you're currently reading the compass sensor.
Yep.
Oh no, you know what it is. That's not a compass sensor, that's an IR seeker. That block is an IR seeker block. Find your compass sensor. Mackay, can you check that as well? That second one needs to be a compass sensor.
Second one from the back.
There we go.
The switch inside the switch. So the one that was in there, that needs to be a compass sensor. So now that we've done that with the variable and we've ensured that we've got the compass sensor there, that should fix Jason's. Hopefully it'll also fix yours.
Okay. So hopefully the people who might be watching this recording benefits from a bit of debugging and see where mistakes can be made.
So good work from Jason for planning that ahead to show us an excellent learning outcome there. I think you might have to slow down your speeds, and I think you're then good.
Yep. So I can, if I wanted to, get rid of these two variables now, can't I?
Yes, and put the compass sensor back in again.
Yep. So if I...
That's fixed yours as well?
No, that didn't work.
Ooh. Can you put your... Do you know how to put your... Oh, your computer won't be connected up, will it?
No, but I'll try. I'll see if it was my problem. I'll go back and get rid of those variables and try the compass switch and see if I was doing the same.
Yep. So just for the people viewing at home, what we found just then is this second block here, Jason had that one as the IR seeker, not as the high-technic compass sensor.
Okay, and I'm just going to confirm that this now fixes my problem. Yep, okay. It's now working both directions. I just got to change them. It's going left when it should go right and vice versa.
Excellent.
So thank you for your patience, everyone.
That's all right.
Yes, it's now working. Thank you.
Mackay guys, how are you going?
So was it you who picked it up that it was the wrong one? Okay.
So Mackay guys, have you got one computer working?
Yes.
One program?
Yeah.
But the other one's not.
No.
Is that right? Right,
Yeah.
we might move on at the moment.
Yep.
You've got one going at the moment. We'll go back and check. Again, double check to make sure that's on the right port as well. So that new one that you've just put back in, make sure it's on the right port.
Oh, thanks.
Was that the problem?
It was the right port. I'll try again.
90% of problems we have with sensors is when it's in the wrong port.
Oh no, I didn't like it.
Gladstone, you've got it all working, is that right?
Yep, I'm happy.
Good.
So Damien,
Yes.
whilst they're sorting that out, the reason why it was then only going left is because it, you know, the different values, it was sending it a smaller value, and therefore, you know, it knew that it wasn't at 180. It would only go and then sort of stop.
When it got to this stage here and it was reading the incorrect sensor type, it was reading the high-tech IR seeker, the number that it thought it was getting out of the IR seeker, even though it was a compass, was obviously only between 0 and 175. That number was never going above it. And that kind of makes sense because our IR seeker only gives us numbers between 0 and 9 to tell us where the ball is. And so it was never going over 175, which means it was always doing this top line and loading that variable with 1, and it was never able to load that variable with 2.
Yep, cool.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yep.
Mackay guys, how are we going?
Yeah, still debugging, not working.
All right, I might keep moving, and I'll give you a chance to debug that one a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty, so we've got this awesome little thing now here, this little program here, which allows us to figure out which direction we're pointing. Are we pointing in the right way, to the left, or to the right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this big ugly mess into something that's a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier to see. So firstly, I'm going to highlight all of these blocks here, being very careful that I don't get the start block, and being very careful that I don't get the loop underneath. Once I've highlighted all of those ones, and you'll see the blue outline around that outer loop, I'm going to go up into Tools. I'm going to choose this thing here that says My Block Builder. And what My Block Builder allows us to do is to take a whole heap of block and create our own custom block. So if I click on My Block Builder, it'll bring up this thing here. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this, say, Compass Check. Now you can't put any punctuation in, so I've just got it all as one word. In the description here, I'm going to say gives a value of 0, 1, 2, the pending on forward, left, right. So a little bit of description there to tell me what's going on. If I want to, I can make my block, give it like a little picture or something like that, and down the bottom here are a whole heap of little icons just to kind of dress it up. Maybe I'm going to choose, what could I choose here? I'm going to choose one here with the dark brown brain. So with the dark grey brain. So that's just changed it in there. You can put whatever icon in there if you want to make it make your life a little bit easier to see. And then I'm going to click on the Finish button. So all I've done there is just change the icon of it and hit the Finish button. And it has shrunk that entire thing down into a nice little block here that's now called Compass Check. So for teachers, when we go into the Australian curriculum and we talk about functions, we have created a function here. We can call this function whenever we need to. The nice thing about this function is this function has now been saved down into our blocks. So if you go to the very last set of blocks where it says My Blocks, there is a block there that says Compass Check. This block is now part of this project. So if you copy this project, you save this project and move it to another computer and open it up again, this compass will be part of it. However, if we open up a new project, this Compass Check will not be part of it. You can export it. So I'll quickly show you how to do that. You don't have to do it now, but there's a little spanner next to all my programs. It's what we call the project properties. And if I go into that, if I come across to My Blocks, I can see there is a My Block I have created called Compass Check, and I can export that specific block. Then when I open up a new project, I can come back into my project properties page, and go import, find that block that I've exported, and put it back in again. So that way we can transfer it between projects. But at the moment, it will always be within this project. If I'm doing this little this block, and I've suddenly realised, it'd be really good if I could display that variable up again. If I just double click on that block, and there we go, it will open up that Compass Check block as its own program, so you can go inside there and change things if you need to. But the nice thing is, it's all ready to go. Alrighty, so we have our robot able to find and turn towards the ball and chase it down. We have our robot able to point in the right direction. The next thing we want to do now is how do we get our robot to find the ball and then figure out if I'm pointing in the right direction. If I'm not pointing in the right direction, I don't want to kick the ball because I'm going to score an own goal. So let's have a look at some of the kind of what we call the pseudocode behind that. How are we going to do that? What's the first thing I want my robot to do?
Find the ball.
Find the ball. So I'm going to find the ball. We already know how to kind of find the ball, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. When I have found the ball, what do I want the robot to do next? I'm going, yes, I found the ball. It's right in front of me. What now?
Check direction.
Yeah, we're going to check direction. If direction is good, what should I do?
Kick.
Kick the ball. If the direction is not good, what do I do?
Well, you have to go around the ball.
Which way do I go?
Well, I guess it
Remember-
depends on how much the direction is good or how direction is bad.
Well, we know we've got that direction variable that tells me I'm either pointing to the left or I'm pointing to the right of my goal. So what I can say is, if the direction is not good, let's find out which direction I am going. So I'm going to say, am I left or right of goal? And that way, if I'm left, go around to the left. And then otherwise, go around to the right. Does that kind of make sense? Find the ball, check the direction. If the direction's good, excellent. Well, let's just kick the ball. If the direction's not good, let's find out. Is my goal on my right-hand side or is my goal on my left-hand side? So if I just come across my document camera, so let's see if I can straighten this up a little bit and look at quite nice. All right, so what I've got here is I'm pointing in the right direction. So I'm going to go turn, 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 turn. There's my goal over this direction here. There's my goal right here. I found the right direction. That's good. I can go and knock the ball. However, if I come from this way, I go turn, 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 turn. I found the ball. Now that I've found the ball, I'm going to say my direction isn't very good because my direction, I'm pointing this way, which is not the right way. I want to be pointing that way. I know that my goal is on my right-hand side. If my goal is on my right-hand side, what I really need to do is to come around like this. And perhaps I just come around a little bit and I check. Look, the goal's still not good. So I turn, come out, come back. Is the goal good now? Still not good. Come out, turn to the ball. Is my goal good now? No. Come out, turn around. Is my goal good now? Yes, it is good. Now we can kick the ball. So we've got this iteration, or we've got this looping effect where we're constantly checking to get ourselves around. Like I said before, this is just a basic way to get started with the soccer, but it's a great way to make a start. So the challenge now is to try and put all of this together. Let's go back to our IR Seeker program. We know our IR Seeker program is working quite well. So what I want to do
Can you
is
bring up the computer, please, Damien?
Yep. So with my IR Seeker, let me just tidy up a little bit. With my IR Seeker, I don't want to play with this program because it's working quite nicely. So what I'm going to do, is I'm actually just going to do a copy and paste. So I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to go edit, copy, or if you're familiar with keyboard shortcuts, you can do a Control-C. I'm then going to open up a new program, add program, new program, and then I'm going to go edit, paste. And that should drop that program back in. I've ended up with 2 play buttons, so I'm just going to get rid of one of those play buttons. Oops, I actually pressed it. So now I have that same program that I had before. But what I want to do is just start adjusting it a little bit. I remember from my switch that if I receive a number 5, that means I am directly in front. Before, I got you guys just to go and kick the ball. However, this time, what did we decide we wanted to do if I found the ball? Once I found the ball, what do I want to do?
Decide whether the direction's good or bad.
Yeah, and we know that the direction has been loaded into that variable. So I'm going to check that variable. So I'm going to grab my variable, pop it in here. There's that direction variable, and I'm going to put in a numeric switch to find out what's happening with this variable. I want to read the direction variable because I want to know what's in it. I'm not writing a new value to it. I'm reading the direction variable. What I'm going to say now is if I'm pointing in the right direction, I'm just going to do a little beep, tiny little beep. Play note. So I know that, what did I say? What was the variable number if I was pointing in the right direction? Was it 0, 1 or 2?
0.
0.
0, so let's pop in a 0 there. If I receive a 1, I am going to put in another sound effect, but this time I'm going to go into my file name. I'm just going to find the Lego sound effect that says the word left. From memory, I think it was in communications. Nope, it's not communications. Let's try information. Left. There we go. And I'm going to put in another case, this time the case number 2, and this time I'm going to put in the sound effect right. So that's in information as well. Right. I'll get you to just turn all the volumes down on this as well. Let's put them down at 20% volume. Otherwise we'll start annoying everyone in the building. So now what this says is we've still got all the other bits and pieces in terms of turning to see the ball. So this will turn to see the ball. If the ball's out of range, it'll turn until it does see the ball. When it does see the ball, we're then going to grab the direction variable. How do I know that the direction variable has been filled in?
Wouldn't you have to run that other program in conjunction?
Yeah, we've still got to run that compass check program. So now what I could do is go back to my compass program and copy and paste all of that in, but I know that I've already saved that in the my blocks. So I'm going to move down a little bit. Let me just zoom out a bit to make it a little bit easier to see. I am going to open up that start there. I'm going to grab this check compass and I am going to wire that in. So now this says as soon as my program starts, run the check compass program. If I look at my check compass program is already inside that loop. So I've got that big loop around the outside, so it'll constantly keep checking that compass, keep checking. So all I have to do is put that one there, and then as it's checking that compass sensor, it's going to be automatically filling in that direction variable. So this variable will either give me a 0, 1 or 2. And so now, as I move my ball around, the robot should drive around until it sees the ball. And then when it sees the ball, it's going to make a decision. Am I also pointing south? If I'm pointing south, that's great, I'm going to do some beeps. However, if I find the ball and south is on my left-hand side, it's going to say left, 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 left. However, if I turn to find the ball and south is on my right-hand side, then it's going to go right, 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 right. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, good. You see how we're taking this problem and we're breaking it down into little parts. This is really important to do with your kids. Don't let them try and jump too far ahead, otherwise things get really messy. So I use things like sound effects a lot because the kids will automatically want to start charging the ball down and scoring goals, but you just got to hold them back and say, no, we've just got to figure out first if we've got this part right. If we've got this part right, then we can add in the next parts. But let's get this part right working with just the sound effects. All right, let's give it a go.
Should be on cool.
And the ball somewhere, isn't it?
Oh, I forgot something. Does anyone know what I forgot?
Just stop it.
I forgot to stop it. So mine got to the front here, did a little beep, and then because I hadn't actually told it to stop, it kept going. So let's go in here. Number 5 needs to also stop. Let's try that now. So mine's saying left, left, left. So if I go like this, well, let's go around.
Turn off.
Right.
And we go.
Right. If it's straight in front. Do you want to turn the sound up?
Say right as well. That's what it's saying.
So you can stay straight in front of it.
Yeah, right. You've got a BBC. Not too good.
Why isn't it making that extra sound?
Don't forget to stop it in all 3 cases,
Ah, yes, that helps.
because we want to say, oh, actually, no, sorry, don't do it there. All right, so I've done it. So what I originally thought was we need to do that. We need to stop it 3 times. A smart way of doing it is to
Can you show
actually
your
put
screen?
this stop there. As soon as we get into section 5, say, yes, it's in front of me. If I stop it there, rather than having 3 separate stops.
Can you show your screen, please, Damien?
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. All right, so originally what I was putting together was this, stop. So whenever you got into section 5, and then you checked direction, you stopped and played a note, or you stopped and said left, or you stopped and said right. A smarter way of doing it is as soon as you get into section 5, to stop the motors, and that way we don't need to have those stops in those sections there. Stop the motor, then decide what we're going to say.
It's 108.
Yeah.
Because it sounded.
Alrighty, So if you want to have a quick look at my setup, so what I've done down here is my pliers are my goal. And so I've got the ball here. So if I get my robot to here and it's pointing towards the goal, I should get some nice beeps. So I'm just going to start with my robot here, turned. So he's saying he's currently to the right of the goal. If I move him a little bit this way, he's now pointing roughly the right way within 10 degrees. If I start him over here, he'll turn towards. He's saying right that direction. And he's saying left that direction. So in this case here, he's telling me he has to go to the left to get around, whereas if he's over this side, he's saying I'm too far to the right, and so I need to come around to the right of the ball. If he's spot on, I get those beeps in there. I'll give you a couple more minutes to work on that. Give me a yell if you're having any issues.
Got a problem, Damien. It says when I loaded, it says unable to compile some documents for deployment. Move to sector.eb3b. Switch case has an invalid value.
Yeah, I had that before. To fix that, make sure that each switch has a value, so 0, 1 and 2 and so forth. If you have one blank, that's the error that you will get.
That's these ones in here. So in your switch, make sure every switch has a valid number. And because we're using a numeric switch, it has to be a number. You can't put, can't be option A and option B. It's a 0, a 1 and a 2.
You've got to go to one bigger step.
I didn't make one up.
You don't have 5. Okay, that's fine.
All right, quick shout out. How are people going so far?
Yeah, we're good in Rockhampton, thank you.
No, Mackay's struggling.
Which part?
When I get mine to load, it'll beep when it senses it in the middle, but it won't go to the left to the right.
Want to go to the left or the right?
Yeah.
All right, so things that you want to check, that variable. Are you making sure that you are running that compass check down the bottom there?
Yep, so that one's attached. But see, mine didn't work very well back in the last.
Okay. So let's check that compass check is working. So perhaps we need to go back into our compass check program and use the display block. If I put the display block in here to display that variable reading, we should be able to see that variable reading up on our screen. Let me just zoom in a bit, make it a bit easier to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that direction variable, I'm going to read from it, read the numeric, and send it out to my screen. So what this should be able to do now is when we run it, we should be able to see on the screen, it should turn towards where the ball is, and when it settles on where the ball is, you should see a number on the screen of your robot, and that number should be, if you're pointing forward, it should be a 0. If you're pointing to the left, it'll be a 1. If you're pointing to the right, it'll be a 2.
Can you just go back to that previous screen for me?
Yep.
Yeah, that check one.
Gladstone and Rocky, if you've got that working, I want you to now think about those sections where we're doing that left and that right.
We do have a question here, Damien.
Yep.
If you change something in the compass check block, will that automatically change everywhere that you use the compass check block?
Yes, every time you download it, it does what's called a recompile. So it'll recompile it with all the new updates and put it straight in.
Okay.
So you're going to say, Damien?
Oh, sorry, yes. So if you've got that working already, I now want you to think about how do you get your robot to move around a little bit. So let me just go to my document camera. So let's suppose that I am trying to, that is the right way. That's the right way, but your robot has ended up like that. Rather than saying left, 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 I want you to think about a set of movements that allows me to go something like this, maybe something like this, and then turn again until you find the ball. And then we reevaluate, am I pointing the right direction? If not, return and move up, and return again. So start thinking about those lefts and rights and putting in a sequence of movements to get your robot to move around into the right place so it can kick in the right direction.
Here. And the goal's there. Let's select the goal. And we're here.
We'll have to make it go that way. Sort of like, say, 2 rotations.
And I only want one rotation because you don't know how far that way the goal is.
Yes.
Like if we just
Yeah.
here, the goal is still that way.
Yeah. And you just go down. Yeah. You have to check and then keep going around.
Yeah. So you can go right.
Can I borrow the ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got like red, just to make sure.
Here, to the left, instead of turning back, we go backwards.
The problem with this,
And then up like that.
Mackay, how'd you go? Did you get that one up and running?
Warren and Gladstone here, Damien, I'm having trouble with I think program 2's got a problem, but I've actually deleted program 2. It's not, I don't think it's right.
Sorry, so which one was your program to? Jason, can I get you to throw your microphone on mute for the moment?
Sure.
Sorry, say again?
Program 2 has got a problem, but I don't have program 2. I deleted it a while ago.
Program 2?
Yeah, I've saved a number of the programs as we've been going along at different stages.
What was program 2 doing?
Well, I don't have it. I deleted it. But it seems to be, the overall software seems to be still recognising that it's there. But I don't have a tab that says program 2 anymore. It's gone. I deleted it.
Okay, so in your project folder inside your robot, you can still see program 2, is that right?
No, I can't see it. But when I go to compile the program that I'm working on, it's coming up with this error that says that program 2 has got a problem. The switch case doesn't know how to tell you.
Oh, okay, and you don't have program 2 anymore?
No.
Check, alright, so go through each one of your tabs and check each one of your tab and make sure that all your switches have valid numbers in each. When it says program 2, it might be referring to the second tab.
Yeah, I did find that one that had an invalid tab, and that worked out. It's still finding one. I just can't see where it is.
So the places that we put tabs in has been in the first one with the IR seeker. We put it in when we were checking the compass. And we've also got it in with our final program. We've actually got 2 sets of switches, one inside another.
Okay, leave it with me for a bit.
Yeah, have a look around. All right, Jason, you can unmute now if you want to. You've got your microphones turned up fairly loud and they take over a little bit.
I'll turn them down to see if that helps.
Cool. Mackay, how'd you go?
Just put something down.
I don't know what I'm doing. I just can't get the left and right at all.
Okay.
I'm thinking I'm in the same boat. I've deleted stuff too, I think. I've put them in wrong places, so...
Yeah.
Do you guys have internet there? Do you want to email me your file so I can bring it up and have a look at it at my end?
No, we don't have internet access.
All right, no worries. Does the theory make sense though?
Yeah. You're going to send us this video, aren't you?
Yes. Yep. Once Jason's cleaned it all up and everything, it'll go up for everyone to look at. So you'll be able to come back and work your way through it.
Yeah. No, I'll just do that.
Down there, tank track, bird, where you can have one going one way, the other one going back. Yeah, and get a return on the spot.
I just thought that if we have those students in both ways to push them in, if both of those are going to take one, it's just
Yeah, so that's what's going to happen. So what do you know? Sure.
So just to get an idea of what I would do, so at the moment, I've got this set up so that when I am found the ball and I'm pointing in the right direction, I play a note going forward. I'd still want to keep that note in there just to let me know what's going on, but probably the easiest thing to do would just be to charge the ball down. So I give it a nice good bump. So let me pop something in like this. Maybe I do 2 rotations forwards at 100% power.
Oh, it's coming back because it hasn't.
If I want to move around, then, and again, I kind of keep that left and right sound effects in there, just so that I know what's going on. And I might do something like a sharp turn to the left. I do a bit of trial and error, find out exactly what I needed. I know for my robot, it's roughly a 0.7 rotations of the wheels to give me a 90-degree turn. And I might then drive forward a little bit. Maybe 1 rotation. The nice thing about this is after it's driven forward for 1 rotation and I break out of this switch, it then jumps back into this loop where it's looking for the ball again. So as I drive forward, I'm going to lose sight of the ball. It's not going to be in front of me anymore. And when I finish this turn and then drive forward, it'll loop back into this same routine to go back looking for the ball again. Once I've found the ball again, it'll do a check. Am I right in front? Am I off to the left? Am I off to the right? If I'm off to the left, do another 90-degree turn to the left, drive forward for 1 rotation, and jump back into my routine and go looking for my ball again. You may find that in your compass check program, we had a very, very narrow range of what the right way is. When you're playing soccer, you might want to just widen that range out a little bit so that you're not always pointing directly to where you want to go, but you might give it, say, 20-degree leeway, just so you're kicking the ball in the right general direction. Going to give you guys about another 5-10 minutes or so. We'll go probably another 5 minutes, then I'm going to probably start wrapping up. You're at the stage now where you're at the tinkering stage. You've got all the basics, you know what you're doing. It's just down to the tinkering.
Can you zoom out on the whole program?
Sorry, say that again?
Can you zoom out and show me the whole?
Yep. So this is the compass check program. Do you want the main program?
Yeah.
So there's the main program. So that's where I've started to put in that, how do I work my way around the ball to make sure I don't score an own goal. That's those sections there are starting to go in.
If you just put it out.
So Damien, which tab are you to have that? Because you've got a 4 or 6.
Currently I'm in tab 5, and the 5 represents the IR seeker seeing the ball directly in front of me. With all these other tabs, with the IR seeker, they have nothing to do with the compass. They only have to do with, can I get myself around to find the ball? Because I don't care about the compass until I'm directly looking at the ball. If you wanted to be tricky,
Make it.
you could say that when it's slightly off, when the ball's slightly off to the left, check the compass and then do some things in there. So that way you're not waiting until you're directly pointing at the ball. You can kind of preempt it.
Yep.
But the easiest way is just turn until I'm facing directly at the ball and then decide what's happening with my compass sensor.
Okay.
Make it just go reverse.
Yeah. So we'll make it reverse and
Like
coast.
one.
We'll make it coast. And then we'll make it like that. Yeah, so directly like this and it goes backwards. You can make it coast, so this one moves that way, and then make it go forward one rotation.
No, it doesn't coast me, but it just keeps, doesn't stop.
No, this one. That one. And when you snap out of it for, say, one rotation, go forward one rotation, or just take it like that.
Sorry, I don't know. So why not?
Jason, does yours read the ball when it's right up, touching it? Okay. So you
See,
always,
it gets stuck there when it's.
it's not reading it.
It gets stuck there because it's thinking it's like it's over 0,
Like, it's
So-
behind all
turn that way, and then it turn back that way.
You're talking about the ball.
Yeah.
So directions over 0.
Yeah, so can you see
So I'm seeing the ball behind you.
if it's 0 to 75, but if it's 0 to 75 was turned that way, and then the momentum is making it go that, so further, and then it goes this way, but the momentum goes further. Yeah. Where was that? I'm confused. Return find if it's there, that, then the compass will go back. We have to turn.
So it's only
Alrighty, happy we're going with that?
to the right.
So, Damien, the problem I've got is I've got it to tell me it's on the left of it, and it starts to move, but it stops. If I move it a little bit, it then picks up or something, and then it goes a little bit, but it's not after it goes, okay, left, it doesn't then try and find the ball and then check where it is.
So, a couple of things that it might be. When you do your set of movements, you need to make sure it's all a discrete set of movements. So this one is for 0.7. This is driving forward for 1, as opposed to just turning. If you just start turning, as soon as you're out of view of the ball, it'll start turning back.
Discrete, but it's not finding the ball part.
Okay? So the other thing is that if you drive too far past the ball, then you've got to make sure that these other cases in here will also pick up the ball. At the moment, I've only set it up so that 5, 4, and 3 do something. You may have driven so far past that it's now seeing it as a 2 or a 1,
Yes.
and it doesn't know what to do if it sees a 2 or a 1. So perhaps you can either put in some more cases, or perhaps you look at the default case and say, what do you want to do? At the moment, my default case is not to do anything. Perhaps if you either get a 0, 1, 2, or an 8 or a 9, you put in a slow turn to see if you can find the ball, or even a drive forward and a slow, like an arcing turn, so you don't just stay on the spot. So I'd say that's probably what's happened. When you've done your set of movements to start bringing yourself around, you've got to the point now where your IR seeker cannot see the ball based on these numbers that we're using so far.
Sure, yep. That makes sense.
You could also use the range command as well. You could say if the range is between 1 to 4, do this. If it's between 6 to 9, do something else.
It will have that time. Because it breaks. It will go fast and just move.
Look, okay, that was the problem, Damien. I needed to put something in the default for it to do.
So should that change it?
Look, guys, what I might do is I've covered all the things that I've wanted to cover in terms of getting soccer up and running. We've kind of got 15, 20 minutes left. Did you have any specific questions? You're at the point now where it's a lot of just tinkering. It's getting those movements right, it's changing the speed. What I haven't looked at all is using the light sensor looking down. When you start out with soccer, as long as the ball is in the field of play, the robot will keep turning towards the ball and you'll keep chasing down the ball. And it doesn't really matter about the outside borders because as long as you're chasing the ball, you'll be staying on the field. If the ball ever goes out of the field, the referee will take the ball and put it back in the field. However, you might want to, once you get all this stuff working nicely, start thinking about that light sensor. Light sensor pointing down is looking at the different colours on the ground. And you know that the outside border is white. If you know the outside border is white, then you start saying to yourself, all right, can I see the ball? Yes, I can see the ball, go chase it down. Or no, I can't see the ball, can I see white? If I can see white, then that must mean I'm outside the field. Run through a set of instructions to get myself back on the field. You know, back up, turn 180 degrees, drive forward for a little bit, something like that. So that brings in another level of complexity. You're now using 3 different sensors. You've got your light sensor to see if you're actually in the field. You've got your high-technic IR seeker to see if you can find the ball. And then you've also got your compass sensor to find out if you're pointing in the right direction. If you want to take it another level, you throw in something like your ultrasonic sensors. If you position your ultrasonic sensors so that they are higher than the ball, then as your robot's looking around, if it sees an object, then chances are you're seeing another robot. You're not seeing the ball, you're seeing another robot. If you're really, really close to the edge, you might start seeing the walls. You then now start to ask yourself the question, okay, so I can see the ball, I'm pointing in the right direction, but there's a robot in front of me. What do I want to do then? Again, that's another level of complexity. I wouldn't start attempting any of these until you've got the stuff that we've covered today working really nicely. But when your students start getting that working and they want to take it to the next level, it's like, all right, so I can't see the ball, but I can see a robot in front of me and I'm not pointing in the right direction. What should I do? And we start bringing in lots more different behaviours, lots more different situations that you could be doing.
Damien, there's one thing that we haven't covered that I think would be extremely useful is, at the moment we've got the robot pointing south. Now, the goals will not be pointing south. So
if the goals are not pointing south, let's have a look at our compass check. In our compass check, I'm going to say I load in the value 0, pointing in the right direction, when the compass reading is between 175 and 185. If you found your fields, you put your fields down and you find that your fields are actually between, say, 30 and 40, then if the compass sensor is between 30 and 40, then that's going to be our 0 direction. If it's between 0 and 30, well actually, sorry, this will get a little bit tricky because we're going to do wraparounds now.
Yes.
So in here, what you're going to say now, is it between, so if it's between 0 and 30, if I do a little bit of maths there, we've got 30 minus 180, so it's minus 140, if I do a 10 there, 140. So if we know that which way we want to point is between 0 and 30, that must mean between minus 140 and minus 140 and 30 will be one direction. So it will be off to the left.
You can't get minus. It would have to be 360 minus.
Yep. So we're going to say that the.
Can you use another option? And this is what I think some other students might do: is use a relative direction.
Yep. So there's also in here measure relative. So you can put in your own measurement in here, say 40 degrees, and this will give you how much away from 40 degrees it is. I haven't played a lot with that, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, yep.
But that may work as well.
I know when refereeing a lot of games, they come in quickly and say, oh, make sure it's pointing in the right direction, because first half you go one way, second half you go the opposite, and comically sometimes the robots score an own goal because
they're pointing the other direction.
They're pointing the other direction. So that's just, I guess, is a bit of a tip. But so you could use relative, or as you said, you could have a 3 case where, you know, with the wrapper, that if it's in between these values, then you know
so
what
you
it is.
do 30 to 40, and then left will be 0 to 30, and it'll also be 360 minus 140 is 220. It'll be 220 to 360. And so if it's not between those ones, then it will be the other direction.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And the good thing in regards to the competition, all 3 fields will be parallel. So, you know, if you set the direction, doesn't matter what
which field you're on.
They'll all be pointing the same direction. So you can then, before you start, get the direction of, you know, how much north it is, how much south it is, write that down, and then have this set. And you can even, and I know some people do, have 2 programs. Going, okay, if I'm going, you know, if I'm going north, do this. If I'm going south, do that.
Yep, it's another way of doing it.
So there's some tips, I guess, beforehand. But Damien, I just wanted to say thank you very, very much for your time.
That's right.
This recording will be extremely beneficial, and I know that when you first started to get it around, I thought, oh, this is easy. But then once you started to put the direction and the compass inside, it then started to get quite complex, and, you know, there was a fair bit of debugging. And I think even though we've had some issues today, I'm hoping that some of the people watching this recording might learn from the same mistakes that we made, because it's quite common. And, you know, this resource will hopefully get some people up and running. So I do have 2 students here today, so I want to ask you, do you think that you have enough knowledge now to participate in the soccer competition?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got some 2 nods of the head here, Damien. So
good.
What about in Mackay? How do you feel as a teacher? Do you think you've got the enough knowledge and skills now to at least get the students started?
Definitely got a good basis. I need to go back and debug and figure out where I went wrong towards the end of the program part. But yes, definitely can stand in front of the class a little bit more confidently now.
Yep.
Package up your project and pop it in an email to me. Send me an email and I'll have a look over it as well.
Yep.
Thank you. That'd be great.
The one thing I would ask is, though the mailing list is fantastic to ask questions, I do not want people to submit their code, and therefore someone else might grab it and basically copy off your program. We are happy to debug, and so if you send it to Damien directly or myself to get help, you can say I'm getting stuck trying to do this and send a snippet of the code or just one little bit, but we do want some people to at least learn the basics and build from it step by step. So that's what I would, but if you do have issues, ask. Damien or I will say, hey, send it to me directly at this address, and we'll be happy to find it. And lastly, in Gladstone, do you feel that you've got enough knowledge and information moving forward now?
Yeah, we'll move forward. I've got a bunch of new guys this year, so we won't be getting on to soccer this year, I don't think. But hopefully we'll get the rescue done this year and we'll be looking at soccer next year.
The one thing I will say is a lot of people say, oh, I'll do it next year, I'll do it next year. I mean, I think with 3 hours from what we've been able to get today, we've pretty much got a robot that's ready to compete. And
if you do have some students that might have a bit of an inkling towards soccer, don't be scared about just dropping this kind of stuff into them and letting them figure it out. You'll be surprised at how quickly they pick it up. If they're keen to stick with rescue, that's fine, but especially if you've got some that want to have a go at soccer, by all means let them have a go.
Damien, we've got one robot working so far. Soccer's got 2 robots in a team. So how do we hang for 2 robots is the next question I've got.
Do you have, how do you expand this to 2 robots?
Yeah, you just have them both same program.
Same program is the best way to get started. Once you start to get a little bit better and you can start doing things like Bluetooth communication between them, you can start having one robot say, I found the ball, and sending a Bluetooth communication to the other robot saying, I've got the ball, and so that other robot might just hang back and not go actively searching for the ball.
I guess the simple and what 95% of people use at Minecraft is you have one attacker and one goalie. So one won't actually go around chasing the ball. It's just as long as it gets close, it sees it, it pushes it, then comes back to where it was.
Yep, that's another way of doing it.
The other problem we've got is just the amount of gear that you need. I've got one set of stuff for one robot and I need to buy another set.